Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in the book of Isaiah, and we're there we go. We're all tangled up. Okay, chapter 41. Let's read verse 1 and the whole chapter. No, I will say before I begin this, there is sort of a logical breakup in the chapters in this latter portion of Isaiah, as it's called. Oh wait, wrong microphone. That's probably better. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to sound like. Okay. All right, and I can hear every single detail. Hold on a second here. Anyways, so chapter 41, it's the latter portion I'm talking about. Everything from 40 on. The chapter divisions are a little bit different. They're pretty logical for the most part. Like I don't have any huge problems with the divisions, except that the prophecy in this part of Isaiah is, because of the different nature, because he's not turning from nation to nation per se, but from thought to thought. I mean, the prophecy is more of a run on, it seems more of a unified thing. Like the first part, the first 39 chapters all have very clear sections where it denotes, okay, in the year of this and such king, Isaiah did this and went here, and then there were things written before and after those things. And for the latter portion, it's different, and we'll observe that. Let's read it. 41. Keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength. Let them come near, then let them speak. Let us come near together to judgment. Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, gave the nations before him, and made him rule over kings? He gave them as the dust to his sword, and as driven stubble to his bow. He pursued them and passed safely, even by the way that he had not gone with his feet. Who hath wrought and done it, calling the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, the first and with the last, I am he. The isles sought and feared. The ends of the earth were afraid, drew near and came. They helped everyone his neighbor, and everyone said to his brother, be of good courage. So the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith, and he that smootheth with the hammer him that smote the anvil, saying, it is ready for the soldering. And he fastened it with nails, that it should not be moved. But thou, O Israel, art my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, thou art my servant, I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Behold, all they that were incensed against thee shall be ashamed and confounded. They shall be as nothing, and they that strive with thee shall perish. Thou shalt seek them, and shalt not find them, even them that contend with thee. They that war against thee shall be as nothing, and as a thing of naught. For I, the Lord thy God, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, fear not, I will help thee. Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel. I will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument, having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains, and beat them small, and shalt make the hills as chaff. Thou shalt fan them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the whirlwind shall scatter them, and thou shalt rejoice in the Lord, and shalt glory in the Holy One of Israel. When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue faileth for thirst, I the Lord will hear them, I the God of Israel will not forsake them. I will open rivers in high places, and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar, the shittim tree, and the myrtle, and the oil tree, and I will set in the desert the fir tree, and the pine, and the box tree together, that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of the Lord hath done this, and the Holy One of Israel hath created it. Produce your cause, saith the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons, saith the King of Jacob. Let them bring them forth. Show us what shall happen. Let them show you the former things, what they be, that we may consider them, and know the latter end of them, and declare us things for to come. Show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that ye are gods. Yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed, and behold it together. Behold, ye are of nothing, and your work of naught. An abomination is he that chooseth you. I have raised up one from the north, and he shall come from the rising of the sun shall he call upon my name. And he shall come upon princes as upon mortar, and as the potter treadeth clay, who hath declared from the beginning that we may know, and before time that we may say, he is righteous. Yea, there is none that showeth, yea, there is none that declareth, yea, there is none that heareth your words. The first shall say to Zion, behold them, and I will give to Jerusalem one that bringeth good tidings. For behold, for I beheld, and there was no man, even among them, and there was no counselor that when I asked of them could answer a word. Behold, they are all vanity, their works are nothing, their molten images are wind and confusion. Now, when I look at, behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom I soul, I have put my. This doesn't really break there, but I could break this up into many, many, many things, but it is kind of like a run on prophecy for a while. Well, the shifting topics, it's like there's like a slow shift and then like a greater shift, meaning you're going through small incremental different directions of that the prophecy is directed, but at the same time it's all in the same general area, but it's slowly moving to new things, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, I don't know if that's a great way of describing it. I don't want to call it an explanation for sure. Let's have a sip of coffee too. Sorry. It's funny. At one point I quit coffee. I never had much. I just quit it at the time because I was trying to just. I quit. I think just to save money on coffee, probably. Okay, so keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength. Let them come near. Now, he had said he taketh up the isles as a very small thing, right, in the last chapter. And I didn't really address the isles. It means coasts, but it also, borders. Islands is one of the literal translations, but it's used in a wide variety of applications. In fact, let's just demonstrate that. Okay, I'm one. I wonder, wrong chapter. Let's look at 41. Keep silence before me, O islands. Okay, O islands. Yeah, coast region. It's the word I thought it was, but let's look at it from the What I really want is that good old Englishman's Concordance reading. So nice not to have to pull out the book and flip through the pages and then hold it up to the screen. It's about the same thing though, boy. Okay, good thing we're uploading. The download speeds are terrible right now. Man, I just can't get this thing to come. Well, you know what? We'll go back to it. Eventually it'll be there. And I can see the stream is going fine. So that's all good. Let's put the words back up. Okay. We'll demonstrate that little moment in a bit. And then, oh, it's finally here. Well, I wasted time going away from it. There we go. All right. The word is literally E. But it's there. That's actually the word. All right. It's literally like I. But pronounced E. Because I's are pronounced E's in most foreign languages when you're reading them. That's why sometimes it's like, it's a Jeremiah or whatever. That's not right. Jeremiah. It's Ya. Jeremiah. But there's a lot of names like Jeremiah or something like that. Coastlands. It's often translated coastlands, islands. Coastlands, islands. And the word itself comes from an unused word. And properly a habitable spot as desirable. Dry land, a coast, an island. It doesn't have to be literally a island. It can also refer to just a coast also. But thereby, we want, to me, it's when the Lord says, keep silence before me, O islands, and I think of that as coasts, I think of it as things at the extreme, at the edges of everything, like the kind of like the peanut gallery, off on, I don't want to hear anything from the, keep silence over in the islands, it means from the farthest place. Obviously, those who are close are going to be quiet as God is speaking, but then even the most distant places, because when you get someone talking in front of a large group, right, there's always people in the back chattering. Not always, but oft times there's people, and that's the way this seems like. It's like, hey, everyone be quiet. If you want to silence the entire world, you call out to the islands because they're the farthest off, is the idea. Because that's how it, islands out in the ocean somewhere, so it's around the sea, actually, because Israel would be closer to the sea there. But that's, I don't know if it's technically part of the ocean, but they're joined. I know they're actually, the funny thing is where this different oceans interface, there's you can see differences in water and stuff. I remember seeing a video on that. That was really cool. Or was it photos? I think it might have been photos. But when the Mediterranean meets the Atlantic, the waters, or I don't know if that particular place, but there are several places where oceans hit and they don't mix entirely, or there's a weird interface. It's interesting. Okay, who hath raised up the righteous man from the east and called him to his foot, gave the nations before him, and made him rule over kings. Okay, wait. Let the people renew their strength. Let them come near. Let them speak. Let us come near together to judgment. Because the message from the last chapter is this: they that wait upon the Lord. And a lot of what's said in this chapter has to do with those who wait on the Lord. There's a lot of things promised later in 41 that we just read, right? That's a promise for those that wait upon the Lord. And that's what the call of Isaiah is here. The first section of Isaiah 1 through 39 are kind of in as the apocalypse of Isaiah. It is very apocalyptic. It follows very closely, typologically, what you see in the book of Revelation. There's very close parallels, which I pointed out constantly. Now, this is sort of like the gospel of Isaiah, where Isaiah is preaching trust in the Lord. Because these are the things God does. He gives power to the faint, and such things. And so here also, those that trust in the Lord, let them renew their strength. And so he's putting to silence the distant enemies or whatever, the distant or whatever, whatever distant things would come against God's people, to silence all. I'm not taking back what I said about the far awayness of the islands, but that's the kind of vibe it gives. Keep silence before me, O islands. You people off there. I'm focused on my people right here. Let them come near. Let them speak. I am focused on my people. And there's something about these islands and these coasts that makes me feel about like the idolatry we talked about, that we read about already in this chapter. So let us come near all the time. We all must appear before the judgment seat of Christ, which is not a place of condemnation, but a place of assessment moreover. We all have to be assessed. Even if we have faith, it's like we need to face Christ. Just because we've passed from death unto life doesn't mean we don't have to face Christ. And we need to be able to face him. If you can't face him, I don't think you can enter into his kingdom. Like if you can't look at him. If you can't stand before him in the judgment. And he says, well done, thou good and faithful. And it requires that we be faithful. That's the most important thing. And that we wait upon the Lord. Because he will give us the power to mount up with wings like eagles. To do the impossible. But also to do the difficult, the running, and the everyday. The walk. There are things that have to be done every day. Then there are bigger challenges. And then there are impossible challenges that we can't overcome. But if we wait upon the Lord and have our faith in him, we will be able to do that. So he calls them to be silent so that he can have his people there and to come near to me, and you get away. Let them speak. Let them come near together to judgment. I want to hear my people. And I also want to, it refers to not just hear, but also they will hear from me. Let us come together. And so in that, here is his case. The case for the Lord, made by the prophet. Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, and gave the nations before him, made him rule over kings. He gave them as a dust to his sword, and as the driven stubble to his bow. Now this is referring to Abraham. That's what I was always taught. That's what I've never been able to think of anything else. But because he is the man, the father of Jacob, for whom this is most likely referring to. Because that's where the whole promise of God towards Israel begins, with Abraham. Who raised up Abraham from the east? Call him to his foot. Come and serve me. That's what it means, to my foot. When someone calls you to his foot, to heal. Like when you call someone to heal? That's what I should say. I should call him to heal, because that's precisely how it should be translated. As far as that's more thought for thought, though. No, I don't know if that's exactly. I would call that pretty. It doesn't specify heal, but I don't know if they had a different. Let me, in fact. Do I need to look that up? That seems like vanity. Do I really need to know if I'm right about that? No, I don't. I just think that that's probably right. Gave the nations before him, made him rule over kings. He gave them as a dust to his sword, and his driven stubble to his bow. There was the time when all his flocks were he was raided basically, and Lot was raided and kidnapped, and there was a kidnapping, and the people were taken. Obviously the exact nature of all that is not precisely formed in my brain. But it was a group of kings. Was it 10? The slaughter of the kings. He basically saved the city of Sodom and Gomorrah or something. Was it Sodom? I should just go back. Instead of being a doofus and guessing about it, a better teacher would be prepared, all right? Sorry, folks. But it's not hard to just go there. So let's go there. We'll use this. Okay. We don't have to read all of Genesis. It's too far ahead. It's going to be just before Sodom. That's the three. That's Here we go. No, this is the covenant. That's Hagar. Where's the slaughter of the kings? You know, it may be I already just went through it and it's just later on in the chapter. So let's see, 18. I'm just going to say, let's just take a stab with the search. Abram, kings. Oh, great. King. Yeah, 14. You know, Chedorlaomer. You know, that's a name that just rolls off the tongue. How many kings were there? So, let's see. Okay. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations. Thank you, Tidal. There were 5 kings. Well, they made war against another 5 kings. Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shomer. All right, so I see why I forget the names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 10 kings involved. I'm glad I got that right. So they were fighting. They made war. They were joined together at the Valley of Siddim. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and the 3rd year they rebelled. In the 14th year came Chedorlaomer. The kings were with him and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth. I mean, this is just, you know, I'm not going to comment on the Rephaims being smote there, but there you go. I mean, we did a study on Genesis that gets through this. That's on audio on my website, oraclesofgod.org, which is always in that promotional card I throw up every day. They return. Anyways, the Vale of Siddim was full of slime pits. I didn't want to go through all that. They took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went away. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Abraham, the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plains of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abram. And it's funny because Abram was confederate with the Amorites at this time, because the Amorites were like the one of the major enemies of Israel when they settled the land, but they're allies here. And so Abram heard that his brother's his cousin basically was taken captive. He armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them to Dan. Now that he took 318 men. He divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them. You know, he went with a night attack. He smote them, and after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, so he smote the king, and then that's when Melchizedek, the king of Salem, comes and brings bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God, and blessed him, and blessed be Abram, I'm sorry, it's not Abraham yet. And so then, that's before the bad things go down at Sodom. So there we have it. The slaughter of the kings in Genesis 14. Abram's big victory. And, you know, I didn't number the force of Chedorlaomer, but it was probably significantly bigger than, because the Lord was with him. You know, who chose Abraham? Abraham went out to a battle. You know, Lot was captive. He was going right. That could have been the end for Abram. Taking 318 men to go after 5 kings, who probably, you know, stuff of Sodom. You know, and Abram's just he's a very wealthy man. God has made him a very wealthy man. He has flocks and stuff. He's prospered very well, and he's old. I mean, he's in his 90s at that point, wasn't he? Whatever. That's not important. But he's old, believe me. But, like, you know, some people, like, if you keep at it and you have the blessing of God, there's no reason why you can't live healthfully all the way to the end of your life. Things happen to stop that. Like we give ourselves over to things that give us ill health, or we just have in us genetic problems that cause us to have ill health. I mean, but like, I just mean the concept of a human being that is perfectly healthy can continue to be so if they continue to use their body and do things and be active mentally and physically. If the Lord give us the grace. And that's often what it really takes, is just a little bit of mercy to be able to live that long. It's not about, we could try our hardest, but, everyone knows about, like, oh, the guy, he ran every day and then he died of a heart attack, because it is somewhat beyond our control. I remember that. I forgot who. There was like a teacher at a school I was at who literally dropped dead of a heart attack, who was a cross-country runner. But it's a genetic problem. It wasn't like he was doing something wrong by running every day. Because people will say, see, that doesn't work. It's like, it's not how it is. He pursued them and passed safely, even by the way they had not gone with his feet. Because he was going into strange territory. He was pursuing them into places where he was not familiar with. He was chasing them. Who hath wrought and done it? Calling the generations from the beginning. I, the Lord, the first and with the last, I am he. That's one of the themes of this also, that especially these early chapters in Isaiah, the second section, that God tells us things before they happen. Some people do. I mean, it does feel, especially, there are things that feel the same about it. And like, I can buy into it that Isaiah is older, and also that the word from God is different, as far as it's a different message than it was in the previous thing. Obviously, he came from there to dwell in the land that it was promised by God, the land that God promised him. Come and I will show you a land where I'm going to put you and give it to you and to your seed. And you will dwell here, and they will be my people, and I will be their God. And he told Abram this early, and Abram went through all kinds of stuff, and he didn't have a child, and they went and they tried to make a child with the Hagar, the slave girl, basically. God did not. Same thing with Ishmael. God did not choose Ishmael. He chose Isaac because it was Sarah. He chose Sarah. But he did bless Ishmael. He blesses other people. He blesses all men. To some degree or another, we all are partakers of God's goodness. The thing, I am the Lord, the first and with the last. This one. Okay. So how does the NIV handle this? I'm curious. All right, that's still loading unnecessarily. All right, let's see. Just click on the NIV here. How does it handle it? Yeah, that's right. It doesn't, for some reason, very slow. I'm glad the stream seems to be fine. And with the last, I mean, you people, I guess. You who hear me now. You who wait upon the Lord. You who are willing to mount up with wings as eagles, if God should so allow. I like that. It's a very angelic sort of picture, isn't it? Shall mount up with wings like eagles. That's what I think. I don't think of like I said, I think I'd probably prefer to fly like a sparrow. Or no, not a swallow. Actually, not a sparrow. Swallow. Those are the real flyers. Calling the generations from the beginning, I the Lord, the first and with the last, I am he. The isles saw it and feared. And I when I do that literal thing about that's just the literal, I don't really mean that. Of course, I think it's just a metaphor for doing the impossible. Walking on water, overcoming sin. Things that seemed impossible suddenly become possible, because with God nothing is impossible, except that God should lie. But he does allow spirits to lie to carry forth his plan. It's an interesting. I don't know, because on some level it's like, you say like, well, God, he's wrought and done it, calling the generations from the beginning. He claims that all over the place. I am he, I did it. Don't you know? That's what he said. That his message to the Assyrian was like, I already did it. This is done. You lose. He thought he was on the verge of victory. He hears a rumor. He goes off, and then he's killed, and done. Big old battled king of Assyria. Because men fall fast, especially tyrannical rulers, actually. They usually have a way of ending very badly. Not usually, not always. Of course, we have lots of tyrannical rulers who've managed to use, to amass enough power to keep people in line, like in the cult that is North Korea. It's like, gee, it's weird because it's almost, because that is like some sort of weird. I mean, in this country, if someone tried to set up their own little North Korea, it'd be illegal. It'd be definitely illegal. Without the army and the nuclear, just the way they treat people. It's essentially a slave nation. An entire nation enslaved for the pleasure of the elite party of people who control the military. And that kind of is the direction some people are trying to make our country go. I don't think that's going to work here, though. Not because I think we're going to fight and stop them. If it comes to fighting, man, you don't want that. You buy ideas. And most people will not be down for that, I hope. Though sometimes, when I go out and I see everyone just masking up like they're told, and really there's no enforcement, because I forget to even bring my fake thing that there's only a few places where I actually will do it, like hospitals or something like that. I'll put one on. But I just feel it as I see people. I'm like, boy, there's no enforcement. They're just enforcing health scare stuff, But the way they're so easily controlled by that is terrifying. Terrifying. Because God only knows what they can be turned to. And there are wicked people watching and taking note. It's not good. It will embolden the wicked. That's for sure. The wicked will become bolder. I do not think they will succeed. Not without Satan himself to lead, because I don't think so. Not here. He's successful. The wicked are making up ground all over the place. But that's why they can't succeed. Because it's not, we're here now because we're winning. God has called the generations, and God did these things, and the isle saw and feared. The ends of the earth were afraid. The Sodom and Gomorrah, the king was, I'll give you things. And he didn't want the king to say, I've made Abram rich, so he accepted no rewards. But Abram, not just the story of Abraham, but with the first and with the last. It started with Abraham, but really where it really peaks is Solomon, where you really see the ends of the earth coming, right, to see the splendor of Solomon and the kingdom of David, and the temple that Solomon built for the Lord. But his wife, he took on all these strange wives from the ends of the earth, and they seduced him to Did he actually follow that? It's been so long since I read that in Kings. Well, was it to idols? Did he actually? I know it was to idols, but it's like wives, Solomon, it's other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. This is where Solomon falls, because he had 700 wives, and all these concubines and stuff, and his wives turned away his heart. You can't be surrounded by that many women. Different system. The ability to act wisely and the ability to think wisely. Because you could be like, I know I shouldn't do this, and then like, I guess I'll do it. Because I want to, or I desire it, or lust drives me. And that's not good. We can't be driven by lust, and that's, obviously a piece of the puzzle. They wouldn't be mentioning all the wives and concubines he's had and how they turned away. It wasn't their crocheting that was getting his heart to think otherwise. So, but the Queen of Sheba came to see the glory of Solomon. She was from far off. You know what I mean? And they came and beheld the glory of all that God had done for the sons of David and the kingdom of Israel. And they're like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. Be encouraged. God is active in the world. So the carpenter encourages the goldsmith, and he that smootheth with the hammer, him that smote the anvil, saying, it is ready for the soldering. He's drawing a picture of making an idol. And they fasten it with nails. Bang, bang, bang. I always had this to me, that it should not be moved. Like, I saw that as institutionalized religion when I was younger. It's like a thing again, and it is sort of true, because God is alive. As I often say, haven't said it recently much, but certainly during Isaiah, God is a person, not a force. He has, his own will, and he is not just a set of rules or something like the Ten Commandments. Some people mistake, God's word. They mistake Jesus is the word of God, right? But that doesn't mean, like, I remember one time a pastor, a friend, a man I do respect, but he held up the Bible and said, this is God. And it is most certainly not, obviously. Not literally. But of course, all the information that I think I really know about God, not all of it actually, but much of it, well, certainly all the shades of my understanding are characterized by what is found in this book. So it does certainly make God in my mind. And that's the funny thing, is that, because we have to read about God and learn about him, it is almost like you're making God as you inform your understanding, you're creating an image of God in your mind of who you think God is, what you think God is like. You know what I mean? A lot of times people just start off thinking and assuming they know because they think he's good. But what they're doing is saying he's good as I judge good to be. So my judgment is what God's judgment is. You know what I mean? Because they don't go through the steps of learning about judgment. Because here's the thing. I don't know that, I'm going to find a verse in here that tells me all about judgment. Like one verse. No, I have to read all the stories and see the things being judged. And then to understand what judgment is. Like how it works. How it ought to work. Because there's perversions of judgment. Or, I don't usually say perversions. Miscarriages, whatever. There's miscarriages of justice. There is not. What do they usually say about judgment? The corruption of judgment, distortion of judgment, whatever. There's a better adjective to go there. Whatever. But corrupted judgment. I know I'm using a verb, but whatever. God, even so, is not just the words written in the book. Because I know this because when I called on the name of Jesus at one point in my life, I've done it many times, but only this once did he respond, and I felt the power come over me. In a very specific way. I'm not going to go into all the details now, but whatever. For me, that's very important because that's a very strong piece of evidence for me. For most people, they're like, oh, that's weird, and it shouldn't really do anything for you, except maybe make you, provoke you to seek out God more, so that you could have a greater assurance if you lack it. See, the thing is, if you have some faith and you lack faith, as it says, a bruised reed shall he not break, the smoking flax shall he not quench. When my faith was really low and God could feel me possibly even losing my faith, I was still praying to him about it. And he responded by giving me something an experience that increased my faith. Put me above a level where I now it's like, yeah, I totally believe. I don't, it's a weird thing. I think it's weird because I think about the difference in the nature of my faith before and after I believed something truly happened to me. And that's the most important thing about my experience. When I received the Holy Spirit, I called the name of Jesus, and this power came over me. And the only thing that really matters is I believe it happened, because it did happen. But I believe it. It doesn't matter to me if anybody believes it, because I do. So it has an effect on me. And that makes all the difference. Because it's for me, it's indispensable. But anyways, God is a person who has passion and feeling. He's not just a set of rules. So he can give mercy. And that's the whole point. He gives mercy. He does not just judge things by the rules. He does not just, not just by the rules, but by the letter. The Spirit makes alive. I've learned things in life that God has shown me that are not in the book. But they are informed by my understanding of the book. And they are framework, there's not always a sure word from the book about a given situation. This is the thing. People ask questions about things and situations that aren't really covered in the Bible. But we can, from similar things, right? But I'm getting a little bit off track here. The point of all of that God being a person, is that he reveals different things to us for our time. There's a time for every purpose under heaven, it says. It's not always, like I said about there's a wisdom in look before you leap, but also in he who hesitates is lost. Both are wise in their time. There's a time when you should not hesitate, but there are other times when you should. And so that it's important to hesitate, to look before you leap, to take a second and assess. I often err on that look before you leap. The whole, he who hesitates, every once in a while, maybe. Well, I certainly, when I think of, it depends on what I'm thinking about. I'm not very hesitant physically. I tend to just move at things quickly. But I'm not accusing myself of timidity, believe me. But when it comes to judging, though, I tend to be very circumspect about it. I try to be. I think I naturally am a bit. So everyone wants to codify they want to know, okay, I want to have the rules. Give me what are the 5 things I need to do to get into heaven? That sort of thing. The Muslims have a very, these are the things you have to do. You've got to pray however many times, 3 times a day, whatever. You got to pray 3 times a day. You got to do this, you got to do that. You got to do you got to make the pilgrimage to Mecca or whatever. There's all these certain things you have to do to be a good Muslim. And people want, and so in some ways, that's when you have it all fixed, it's easier in some way, and people like it like that. Just explain God to me so I can understand. Like the idea of having also like the intercessor, the one who makes God for you. You know what I mean? The carpenter and the, you know what I mean? The point is, why do these people, why, you know, we're talking about God. Why is there a carpenter involved? Why is an anvil getting in the way? Why are people, soldering? That probably means affixing. I'm not going to look up the word soldering because I know it isn't like we do, but whatever. It's ready for being soldered in place, that's for sure. Because that's context. We only need the context here to understand what it means. It's ready to be made. It's ready to be, just we'll fix it in place. So God doesn't change on us and he doesn't get ahead of us. Or, we got to get a handle on God. And that's what a lot of religion is. They're getting a handle on God, put him in a little containerizing him, taming him, making him palatable, and then dishing him out in ways that people are like, oh, isn't that nice? I like the way they made Jesus look. He looks just so, fastened with nails, almost makes me think of crucified up there. Beep. Who called it from the beginning? But you, Israel, are my servant, and Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Those are people. There are people who have turned their backs on God and gone to idols. That's this is subtly hinting at that, but it does mention idols more explicitly as we go down here, right? But you, Israel, are my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Now remember, Esau was also the seed of Abraham. Ishmael was also the seed of Abraham. But in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Jacob was chosen, and not Esau. And because God chooses whom he pleases. And Jacob pleased him, Esau pleased him not. But it's not of works. Paul explicitly says that. It's not because it says the children, being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purposes of God may be made manifest. And that's what Paul says in Romans. It was said unto her, to their mother, it was said, the elders shall serve the younger. And it was already done. It was done. It was a done deal. But then they lived it out, and the judgment of God proved right. This is the thing. He was right from the beginning. Esau was a profane man. Why would God choose him? And it's not that he wasn't chosen because of all that he did. It was he wasn't chosen before he did anything, because God, from the beginning, calls it, makes it. So in a sense, yeah, it is of works. In a sense, his works have something to do with it, but it's the works that God has done from the beginning. And then you will say to me, but why does he yet find fault? How can he find fault with someone whom he created, and from the beginning, from the womb, he was like, that one's no good? How can he find fault? Well, because he did. He says, that one's faulty. He just said it. The real question is, well, how is he allowed to make faulty people? Why isn't God forced to make everything perfect? How can he do such a thing? Why does he make people who have the potential to fail? Because I guess so the thing made is going to look at him that made it and said, why did you make me this way? You know why God allows faulty people? Because he loves retarded kids. He doesn't hate them. He loves even the wicked and wishes to redeem them from their wickedness. So he allows them to exist. Have I hated? The Lord, it says in Psalm 11 verse 5, the Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked and him that loveth violence his soul hateth. Upon the wicked he shall rain snares, fire and brimstone, and a horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup. That's how he feels about it. Yeah, and such were we. And Jacob wasn't a perfect guy. His heart was perfect towards the Lord, though. That's the thing. It's like we walk with our hearts towards the Lord. He calls Abraham his friend. That's the thing. That's Jesus. He said, henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant doesn't know what his Lord is doing. But I have called you friends. For all things that I have told you, I've heard from my Father. All the things that I've heard from my Father, I've told you. And so, to be God's friend, that's what I said, we have to face Christ. If we can't face him, and he says, friend, good to see you, well done. I will no longer call you servant, but I will call you. He doesn't say that. I'll continue to be a servant. That's fine. He also, because in a place he says that to his apostles. I've called you friends because you know what I'm doing now. I don't know that I'm at apostle level where I'm like Jesus' buddy, but I do try to do my reasonable service, as we all should, and in so doing, draw closer to him, so we could know him and be known of him, and that he would regard us as friends. But in the Gospels, he says, well, I think of the one where it says, where the guy talks about, I'm an unprofitable servant. Or which man having a servant, when he comes home, does he say, oh, take it easy now, I know you've worked all day? No, when he comes home, he says, all right, rise and prepare my meal so I can eat. And then you can relax after that. Meaning they got to complete their service. And I don't know if my service is necessarily complete just when the Lord appears. There's still, I believe, a millennium to be lived and to be worked in and served in, whatever capacity that would be. So somewhat, it's too, whenever I think about that far ahead, it's like that kind of stuff. When people say you can't do that. They were like, so you're done now, right? And I was like, you know what? No. I don't like people trying to assert some sort of, falsehood about this must not work. This can't be. Because I trust the Lord. And I'm not afraid. Some people want to make retarded kids extinct. Kids with Down syndrome, particularly. Not just people who there are some people become mentally retarded through horrible, tragic accidents and stuff also. But like the ones that can be screened out using, whatchamacallit? DNA, Thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen, seed of Abraham my friend. You got to be more focused on walking with God. Abraham walked with God. It is the daily walk. It's great that you're ready to mount up with wings like eagles and fly away in the rapture. I'm just kidding. It's great that you're willing to go and do the impossible with God. You want to take Jesus' hand and walk out on the water to him. You want to help him divide the bread and pass it out to the crowd. You want to be there when he raises the dead, right? I do. But what about, the harder stuff? The parts where you got to run. Not so much hard. That's because it's more like you got to do it on your own power. I can't fly, but I know I can run. I can run. And I do run, I run. I do not beat my fists in the air in vain. We run the race set before us. But that is a walk, too. There is a walk aspect, a patient, everyday life, living according to God's precepts, learning the righteous ways, and doing them. And that is how we become his friend, because Muslims aren't wrong to pray to God frequently. But we want to pray to God genuinely, of our own. It comes best when it's not just a procedure. Though sometimes just doing something over and over again makes a good habit. You know what I mean? It's nothing wrong with forming habits. Like, well, you want to pray 3 times a day? You go ahead. I'm not going to charge anyone with that, because in Christianity we don't do that. We don't charge people with particular numbers of prayers. Well, they do in the Catholic Church, but I'm not Catholic. Well, I sort of am Catholic, aren't I? I was baptized Catholic, so already been repeated. Like, who raised up the righteous man from the east? Thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth. That's kind of solidifying it. Call thee from the chief men thereof. You consider Abraham to be because he was an important man. He wasn't exactly a king. And thou art my servant. And I've said to you, you are my servant. You will serve me. I have chosen you and not cast away. I am your God. He still hasn't cast away Abraham. Never has. So we'll pick it up with we'll pick our analysis up with verse 10. We'll read the whole chapter again. And thanks for joining me today, and we'll look forward to being back again tomorrow.